Okay.
Okay, good night. Go on, Bertram. It's over to you.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. Good evening, fellow Combermereans and others, because I tend to believe that there are others on. Let me welcome you to the second presentation for the week. Last night we had the concert, wonderful concert. And tonight we're gonna be having, we're gonna be looking at the topic, opportunities in agriculture. Tonight we're happy to have with us a fellow Combermerean, Damien Hines. Those of you who play the hockey would know him. He's currently employed with ICA, the International Agency for Cooperation in Agriculture. He's a past president of the Barbados Beekeepers Association. He's well qualified in the area of agricultural economics. So tonight he's going to be speaking to us not only as a Combermerean, but as somebody who is well versed in his field. He will give you any other details which you need to know. And I think this discussion tonight is very important this time, seeing the times we are in. COVID times is one, we need to feed ourselves. And two, agriculture in itself can be used to, in some cases, supplement incomes, and some cases earn incomes. So Damien, my brother, is over to you.
Thank you very much, Bertram. I take it all, everyone is well and everyone is hearing me well. Let me begin by sharing my screen. I must say that it is really an honor to be asked, first of all, to deliver this presentation. And host has disabled.
Kofi, you may have to enable.
I need some assistance on that thing.
Yeah,
Kofi. But before we go there, let me just say thanks very much to the association for thinking about agriculture and including agriculture on the slew of presentations for this week. As Bertrand indicated, we are living in different times, and as a result, the meaning of agriculture to us has changed. And I'm hoping that at the end of tonight's presentation and discussion, because I'm really hoping that we do have some time to discuss the issues that will be presented, we will get a better idea as to how we can fit into the whole agricultural paradigm, regardless of where we are. I know in the invitation we spoke about regardless of our spot, you know, whether we are looking at it from a commercial perspective, whether we are home gardening, there is a role for each of us to play. And tonight's presentation, I trust, will bring to light some of these opportunities. Host, I'm still disabled. I'm not able to share my screen as yet. As we wait, let me just thank all of those persons that have joined. I know we have some people joining from further and away, way over across the Atlantic. So thanks for tuning in tonight. And as Bertram said, we also have some non-Combermerians listening in. So thank you all for joining. Is the host connecting me?
I'm trying to get him on his cell, so just give me a minute.
Okay.
Hopefully you can talk away a bit more.
All right, go ahead, Damien. Go
Okay.
ahead now. You should be able to share now.
Yes, indeed. Indeed. I was going to start talking a bit about hockey and so on. You will recognize that I decided to wear one of my champion or scholars shirts from not too long ago. I think this was last year's champion master shirt. So we're still doing great things as far as hockey is concerned. And I trust that the alumni is taking note of the exploits on the hockey field. So, right, so this is where we jump off. As noted, the title of the presentation is Entrepreneurship Opportunities in Agriculture. And the title slide I have chosen, the photo in the title slide, is one where the folk at the sand quarry, I'm sure all of you are familiar with the sand quarry, the sand hole in St. Andrew, and they're actually coming to their final days of the commercialization of sand, of the sand operation. So the decision they have taken is to actually convert, to ameliorate the soil, to condition it and make it suitable for agricultural production. And this photo was taken a few years ago after they had done their first crop, really. And you see in the photo them displaying some cassava that they were able to produce. You see banana trees, some fairly mature vegetation that is now taken root on that site in St. Andrew. So this is one of the areas that I think we need to pay attention to. Reconverting traditionally what we would refer to as marginalized land and bring it back into agricultural production to assist us with what we need to accomplish. So just by way of getting a few definitions out of the way, we're speaking about entrepreneurship. So we want to get that definition clear for those of you who are perhaps new to the area, but we're talking about an individual or collective capacity to develop sustainable enterprises. And one of the things when we speak about agriculture within today's context, and as you can see, the two following definitions speak about the transition in which we view opportunities within agriculture. Previously, the old adage was to look at the right to use and exploit land and other related elements to carry out agriculture, forestry, or mixed activities. In today's language, in today's context, we have substituted the word exploit for looking at sustainable ways, because we recognize that through practices in the past, we have not focused on sustainability, and it has caused systemic breakdown in a lot of, whether we talk about the environment, ecological systems, which have unfortunately led to some of the phenomena we see today, like climate change, obesity, malnutrition, for want of and using it in a different phrase as opposed to undernutrition, to over and not using the correct foods to sustain our lives. So the new definition of entrepreneur, agricultural entrepreneur, is particularly the one that we want to focus on more and more as we go forward. So some opportunities, and within this presentation, we'll be looking at the opportunities within the following areas: the food security, which remains the major one, agritourism, and what that looks like now in a post-COVID era, environmental stewardship, I spoke about the title slide, which looked at the rehabilitation of soil and so on, and the importance of doing so. Climate resilient agriculture, which is something that we have to embrace more and more given the times that we live in, and emerging opportunities, of which we will look at a couple. Okay, so food security opportunities. Now, as I said, this is perhaps the main area in which we can make a significant impact in terms of taking an opportunity to get involved in agriculture in Barbados. As this slide presents, and really, if you look at Barbados, we import over $330 million in food. So what the signal this automatically sends is that we have a potential with this, say, 600 or more than $500 million budget or opportunity to substitute a lot of the food that we actually import and use in Barbados. Surprisingly to some, you would note that we actually had an 8% increase in food imports over 2019, and you may wonder, well, because of COVID and so on, why that would be the case. We do also recognize that importation fees would have gone up. Again, due to climate change, commodity prices would have gone up. The cost of containers, as people look at alternative ways of utilizing them and so on, those have also, and the demand for those rise, the price of containers have also gone up. So we have a multitude of factors that have caused what we will see as a rise in our importation, even though the net volume of food may have decreased. Right? Another idea that we need to constantly have in mind and pay attention to is the fact that food markets today are highly differentiated, right? I use the two photos to kind of demonstrate the point and to highlight the relationship that today we have with food. So we know most of our food, in fact, over 80% of our food comes through the harbor. So we are talking about cruise ships being pretty much responsible for the facilitation of our food across seas. And when it is distributed in Barbados, we tend to have a lot, well, as the context in Barbados, many mega stores, a lot of many village shops and so on, and we will see the difference between what is offered at different levels and so on. But the supermarket shelf and the point behind the slide on top is to really demonstrate the high differentiation of our products. And I say differentiation of products and not differentiation of commodities per se. And I'm hoping you may be able to find another opportunity in this differentiation, because, and I'm sure you would agree, while we while we agree that the human diet is made up of mainly maybe what, two dozen commodities, including meats. What we find today is that these commodities are being more and more differentiated. So tomatoes are now being turned into purees, pastes, ketchups, and a whole host of different products. They're actually being added to some other commodities like tuna and so on as a blend. So we are finding that while more and more commodities are coming to market, our consumer or commodity base is not necessarily increasing, and we are using the same things in different ways. Right? We spoke about challenges. Bertram had indicated that prior to COVID, we had issues relating to our health, our nutrition. Sorry, I didn't know that we were taking questions as yet. Are we still good?
Yeah, they're good. They're good.
Continue? Okay.
Continue.
That's just the one who unmuted themselves. Continue.
No problem. Right, so what we find is, as it was pointed out, prior to COVID, we actually had a situation where we were pretty much eating ourselves to hospital beds or death beds, as people may want to call it, right? And as a result, we have, and the health statistics would show that we have pretty much a case of chronic non-communicable diseases that are endemic in Barbados and for a large part the wider Caribbean as well, right? As the stat here shows, we have insurance claims of over 30% attributable to our NCDs. In fact, one of the checks I had made suggests that the price we pay to address NCDs at the hospital level is actually higher than the budget for agriculture in Barbados. And these are where we now have to try to forge the links to show how the production of wholesome foods within the local context could actually attribute and reverse the need for beds to deal with people who have hypertension and a lot of cardiovascular diseases and so on and so forth, which are highly related to diet. So we have an opportunity here to reverse what we consider a sickening trend in Barbados and to provide a space or a solution where we can have healthy, wholesome lives being conducted. To exasperate the point, we have on the photo to the bottom, we have a photograph of a shelf in what we would consider a traditional village shop, which is, the corner stores, which had become, a major talking point during lockdowns and so on, as to where people would go and access food and so on while we were on curfews and so. Now, you would note that, as I said, this shelf is pretty much representative of what a typical village shop would look like. But unfortunately, and if we have people, I don't know if you have any nurses or people within the ministry or dietitians and so on the chat tonight, but unfortunately, we would not really rate any of the food presented here as nutritious, as wholesome, as something that should be of priority or of number one option for a diet. Yes, okay, we understand the social and economic conditions which give rise to these types of food and so on, but we have to draw the link, and we have to appreciate the direct link between eating these high sodium, high fatty, high energy type foods, which are again, and on the flip side, processed beyond recognition and processed beyond the retention of any nutrients. Then we have to question where we're going if we're going to be continuing promoting these types of foods and not recognizing that they are leading us to the slide above, which, as I said, is the hospital bed, right? So these are, again, understanding where it is we are would provide the opportunities for persons to come on and say, well, no, okay, I might be able to provide some products or service that can flip what we're seeing on the slide on the below, right? Now, having that context, how do we go about increasing food production, particularly of fruits and vegetables, which I didn't mention of, and I should have paused and spoken a bit about this. But one of the reasons why our diets seem to be so compromised is the fact that we are lacking sufficient fruits and vegetables. In fact, when we look at our diets from a Caribbean level and a world level, we are way above the indices as far as sugar, as far as fats, as far as those type of things. But when we look at our consumption is nationally of fruits and vegetables, we're only at halfway point. Yes, okay, again, speaking about economic access is an issue. The cost of these things are challenges, but they remain challenges until we put thoughts and ideas together to come up with solutions to address them, right? So protected agriculture is one way in which we in Barbados can increase the intensity, the intensification of productive systems. They tend to use less water. We know we are water scarce island, so this is an advantage of using such systems. We do have to be careful, however, it's not technology that's new to us. We do have to be careful, however, that we use the correct technology. We adopt technologies that are suitable to our climate, suitable to our altitudes, suitable to the types of crops that we want to produce, and suitable to our, and we have to face it, we have to suitable to our technical capacities as well, right? So for us, I would recommend using a lot of shade covering, removing, not necessarily using any plastic or heaven forbid glass for it would even be worse because it's way too expensive and it also traps a lot of the heat. So we have to be looking at systems, as I said, that will cool, lend to cooling or production areas a lot more efficiently. And of course, budget is a major concern. We know we cannot escape the fact that regardless of what we're doing in Barbados, the cost of production is a huge factor, and most times, in fact, in most areas, it leads to us being uncompetitive in international markets. So this is something that we have to pay very close attention to, that type of protective system that we're going to be using. Home gardening is another very effective way. In fact, again, we're going to talk a bit about COVID later on in terms of the opportunities therein. But this is another opportunity in itself, because being stuck at home with not much going on, you know, with your movement curtailed, this is something that is wholesome, providing nutritious food that you may not have to necessarily go and buy. It is fun activity, you're getting your exercise, you're getting your sunlight, a lot of things that when you hear the people that are treating COVID patients speak that they should be getting, home gardening actually provides quite a bit of it, right? So it is something that, and it's a very good family activity too, to get children engaged and outdoors and so on, and minds occupied. The whole issue of cooperative farming is something that is, while we do have some examples of it, I don't think we have enough. And I say, when I say not enough, I say not enough successes compared to the financial cooperatives that we have in Barbados. And we know we have quite a few successful financial cooperatives, NUPW, Co-op of Bridgetown, and so on and so forth, right? So oftentimes you hear people say that, you know, oh, coming together and working together is difficult. We don't do it well. We don't. But again, we do have quite a few successful cooperatives, maybe not in the agricultural domain as we would like to see, but certainly it is not, I don't think it's for lack of mentality, because we do have some very positive examples of it happening. But again, these are ways in which we can, you know, as I say, each one teach one methods, and to bringing two hands together to clap. All of these different analogies and so on come into play in terms of sharing a load and making sharing a load one, but also trying to ensure you have the productive capacity to access certain markets as well. So it's for these reasons that coming together could help us in a great way. Within agrotourism, again, we have to speak about what post-COVID, or as we say, well, we have to be living through COVID, so I'm not sure if we can even be speaking about post-COVID, but the new reality that COVID has brought on has thrown opportunities our way. For example, in Barbados, while the tourism product has been predominantly focused on our sea and sand, there have been moves afoot prior to the onset of COVID to look and to refresh our tourism product. And as a result, you have seen a lot more tours, you've seen a lot more hiking opportunities. We have a train tour that would have been started, St. Nicholas Abbey recently. We have in the pipeline several proposals to transform our sugar museum or sugar factories, or defunct sugar factories into sugar museums where people can come and have the tale of our sugar legacy told, and so on and so forth, right? We also have horseback riding, eco tours, and I know because many of us have not traveled for the past couple of years now, these type of domestic activities are actually becoming a lot more popular. In fact, you have a lot more persons going to the north of the island, to the Scotland district and spending time there and so on. So yes, we have some domestic tourism taking place. And while it may not have been the mainstay and the policies that have been developed have not really looked to focus on this aspect, but through as I said, through the pandemic and the times that we find ourselves in, we find these experiences taking root far more in Barbados. And of course, coming out of COVID, the fact that they have been established, it means now that we can bring tourists and so to enjoy a lot of what we have to offer. Again, when we talk about food and agro-tourism opportunities, the link is natural. We're talking about exposing visitors to our island, to our culture through the cuisine that we offer. And we know that we have a range of cuisine. We have from the oysters type experiences to the fine dining cliff type experiences. And of course, yeah, we are employing farmers, we're employing fisher folks. We have entrepreneurs who are working on behind the scenes to ensure that these partnerships work. So it is important, again, given the fact that we have a very transient, and I anticipate that as we get back into a working normal, we will see the return of visitors in their droves and the opportunities, therefore, to interact with them and to provide them with experiences through our cuisine, through, as I said, through the tours and so on. We do have as potential linkages, right? As the slide said, food culinary tourism, this is one of the growing areas in the world travel market right now. So this is something that we need to take advantage of. And we have been taking advantage of traditionally. I'm sure most of you know that Barbados is renowned for its international cuisine and the different types of restaurants we have on the West Coast and South Coast in particular. Okay, coming home, coming to points that I again, from the introductory slide to points that I think we need to focus on. Environmental stewardship. Now, one of the things, as I said, when I was going to school, in fact, it's something I think my parents might be on. One of the things we also heard about, both my parents are Combermereans, by the way. My dad went to the school and my mom is an honorary Combermerean through the work she would have done with the PTA. So we're all very proud of her for that. And so since 1995, she would have been made an honorary Combermerean. But one of the adages we would have heard growing up is money don't grow on trees. Well, the international community, and based on the amount of work that has been done, looking at all of the tremendous value that trees would have played in terms of their quality, and we know when we speak about providing carbon sinks and protecting our ozone, water quality, stabilizing soil and so on, that they are quite valuable. In fact, to my mind, still quite undervalued resources. But this narrative is changing. In fact, for some years now, the Ministry of Agriculture, for those persons in orchard production, actually were paid a subsidy of $5 per fruit tree per year. I think you get it off as a rebate off your land tax. But these are incentives obviously there to encourage persons to take advantage of the tremendous value that trees have. And the next slides will kind of highlight or illustrate the levels of support that are being thrown in this area. So essentially what we've realized, having witnessed the decline in productivity in many crops, predominantly the traditional monocrop commodities like sugarcane in Barbados, banana and so on in the Windward Islands, cocoa and so on in Jamaica, Trinidad, and even with cotton and so on in the Windward Islands. We have Barbados and the Windward Islands. We recognize that we have been doing a disservice to the soil And as I said, the declining productivity, declining figures are actually highlighting that we need to do something. And the message is clear. Huh? And when we speak to international agencies, as I mentioned, leading government, G7, G10, G20 governments, they're pushing the narrative pretty much that we need to utilize production systems that protect the environment or prevent its degradation. So this is coming to the fore more and more. And just to illustrate some of the agencies that are preaching this mantra, we have the Green Climate Fund, which was set up again by the international community to address issues of climate change and to build resilience among communities that may be affected by the changing climate. We have Green Globe, we have the IDB, the Inter-American Development Bank, Caribbean Development Bank, UNDP, JEF. JEF is actually the Global Environmental Facility, so they are really there to provide this type of environmental a champion for environmental protection and provides support for those NGOs and in particular that want to get involved. Of course, there is the FAO, Microsoft, private sector agencies like Microsoft and Bayer are also very, very much involved in trying to, again, redress the whole issue of environmental degradation, and they're putting a lot of support in these areas. So these are areas, if you keep your ear to the ground, we can get support to assist us in agricultural projects that are in line with what these agencies are promoting. Okay, I spoke about practices. Now, organic farming is one way in which we could help our environment, and again, and through going this way, attract some of this local and actually regional funding that is available to us. We know that there's a huge market. We speak, and this is and this 10% annual growth has been something being observed for probably a decade now. You know, where the demand, the demand for produce continues to grow. I'm not sure if you noticed, but even here in Barbados, in Cost You Less, they actually have an organic aisle where, or part of an aisle is designated to organic produce, and that has come about really through the Barbadian public and people going into these shopping places and demanding organic farming, organic produce, and as a result, you're going to see more and more people to help meet that demand, set up aisles and so on, promoting this type of food. Internationally, organic food attracts a premium price, but here in Barbados, the growers are trying to, given all that is going on with increasing food prices and so on, what they've been trying to do as far as possible. And again, it is really from the ethical grounding that the farmers have in Barbados. They're trying to maintain the prices as close as possible to what you will find as traditionally grown produce, right? So we have it going. We actually have, as far as being able to find organic produce, the Organic Growers and Consumers Association, they set up in the Cheapside market. You can find members in the Cheapside market. On Sundays, they are at Holders Market. I know they're at the Hastings Farmers Market at someday during the week as well. I'm not sure if it's Wednesday, but they can be found quite easily on the island. Another emerging type of another emerging system that is very good for reversing the negative effects of climate change and so on will be permaculture, which is permanent agriculture, which goes a step beyond organic, which and I maybe should have spoken about organic a bit more, but we're speaking about the producing food without the use of non-toxic chemicals in the main. That is what organic farming is essentially. The chemicals and some other elements that may create or increase toxicity in soil and in food and so on is what is limited or eliminated when we speak about organic farming. When we speak about permaculture, however, we take it a bit further. We're looking at a whole systems way of thinking about about what it is you're going to be doing. Very, very specific on your location. So when we're talking about growing crops that will stand the test of time in this particular location. So you're not going to be introducing crops, but necessarily just because they have a high market value. No, you're going to be introducing crops that are good for the soil that is presented in your location, good for the climate, and in keeping with the thinking, you're also mixing your crops. So you're not looking at a monoculture setup. You're looking at creating a food forest, this type of multi-dimensional food cropping system where all the plants do provide some utility, whether it be to you, the household, for commercial purposes, to suppressing pests in the garden. The photo you're seeing here, we have some chickens, and I know we're familiar with chickens as food, but chickens are also very, very good at suppressing pests. They also scratch the surface of the soil, providing some aeration and tilling the soil, preparing it for crops and so on. So the idea behind permaculture, and of course, when we look at these systems, we're not looking at produce just for food, but also for health as well, right? So you have your kitchen garden, but also your kitchen medicine cabinet, for want of a better phrase, right there at your fingertips. So this is the idea behind permaculture. So it can be expressed at any scale, from the largest scale, even Barbados size. In fact, one of the things we have been thinking about, of course, everything is exploratory, but what would an organic or a permaculture Barbados look like? You know, where would we have certain things growing? Where would we have, how would we plan that and have fruit trees and as I said, or cropping systems going? Moving along, we have, and this is speaking closer, enforcing the point again about our environmental stewardship, right? We recognize that agriculture must also be climate resilient. And this is something that we need to be very mindful of, given that we live in the hurricane belt. We are prone more and more to extreme and prolonged periods of drought. Sorry.
That is Chinese, man.
Oh, so if he
What he on?
if he put in the 6-foot window.
Hello.
Jose, can you mute your mic?
Yeah, thank you. Right. So we have, as I said, we could be looking at agriculture from a climate resilience perspective. Speaking for the fact that we know that we reside in the hurricane belt, and we are prone to quite devastating periods of drought in certain times. In fact, I remember the year, I know my time must be coming close to the end, but just to give a quick anecdote, a quick anecdote, in 2008 or 2010, I remember we actually had a project in River Plantation where there was a sheep farmer who was at his wit's end trying to get water for his animals. This was around May. So what we would have done, we came together. This is, when I say we, ICA is the organization I work with. We, together with the Ministry of Agriculture, FAO, I think BADMC was involved. We came up with a water tank solution where we could trap rainwater and he could feed his animals. By October, November, the rains had come and the area had flooded out. And the same farmer who, the ground wasn't, the photo on the right is an exaggeration, but there were some sizable cracks in the ground when we had visited in March. And again, by October, November, the rains had come, and that same land in River Plantation was actually under 12 feet of water. The farmer actually had to use a boat, a canoe to go to get to his pen and actually free the animals. And sadly to say, 2 of the kids actually drowned in that water. So this is in the space of 6 months. So we understand what we mean when we say that we must build resilience in our agriculture for it to last. And I think this slide actually paints a picture of what it is we're talking about. This is a slide, this is not a local slide, this is a slide from Asia, where the Red Cross was doing some work, similar work in climate resilience. And this is a photo of a former poultry farm where the farmer was growing chickens. And every year, well, you're familiar with Asia. So, well, when I say familiar with the monsoon rains in Asia. I'm not suggesting you may have been visited, but we know that similar to what the hurricanes they have monsoon rains and seasonal. So every year, the chicken producer would experience floods. The area would be flooded out. He would lose birds. He would lose structures due to damage and so on. And he would have to painstakingly rebuild and go over this process over and over again until, again, through sensitization, because we understand it's hard once you're on the ground, living in something, going over it, unless you are able to take yourself away and see it from a distance or have new ideas brought in. It is very difficult to change your mode. They say you either have to incentivize or train to get people to change behavior, right? So unless you are aware of other approaches, then you may find yourself stuck in a rut. Anyhow, the point is that after realizing that they could not fight, or it didn't make sense fighting, this is the permaculture approach and the ethics behind permaculture. It doesn't make sense fighting nature. So what they would have done is they would have actually, when the rains came, they would have actually reinforced the area that would have flooded, so that they can create a pond, a permanent pond, and they decided to raise ducks. Now, what they did not know was that ducks were actually fetching a higher price than chickens at the time. And so what you actually see here is not only a more sustainable operation at the end of it all, but also a more profitable one. And one, again, when the rains come, the ducks would float, the ducks would be happy, and the farmers wouldn't have to look to put any money towards repairs. The insurance people are fine and so on. I'm not sure if they were covered by insurance anyhow, but that's just to give an example as to the type of thinking, whole system thinking that we need to incorporate when we're planning our agricultural enterprises. We need to focus on commodities that are least affected by changes in climate. This is coming off of the next slide. And so we're going to look at some examples. If you go clockwise from the top slide, we have the Blackbelly sheep, the Barbados Blackbelly sheep, I must add, which is as Barbadian as Harrison's Cave, stalactites and stalagmites, been around from slavery times, would have through colonial times, would have been. It's really the unique evolution or hybrid of European wool sheep and African hair sheep that would have been brought and would have intersected during our colonial era. So from the time of our colonial era. So these sheep again are very hardy. They have adapted to our climate. They've adapted to our grasses and our forages. They've adapted to our water and the type of water. We have pH, texture, and so on. So they are quite handy animals. And I will probably go into I will go into an example in another slide in terms of how we could take advantage of the animal. Beekeeping is also something where we're talking about bees that have been in existence for centuries. So as climates have changed and changed back, the bees have remained, in other words. So these are creatures that some call them the most intelligent insects, the king of the insect kingdom and so on, or queen of the insect kingdom. So we have an opportunity here. We have a growing apiculture industry in Barbados, and anything that is new, you know, tends to be exciting and something that people can get in and take advantage of easily. The coming around, we have the sweet potato again, which is very resilient to our climate or soils in particular. And we have the know-how. I mean, we've been growing sweet potatoes for a very long time in Barbados, and in fact, it is one of the staples of our Barbadian diet. In fact, I know we had actually, with the Ministry of Agriculture, we were actually doing a study on the use of sweet potato and looking at doing some value chain work in sweet potato, and you would be alarmed. I can't remember the exact figure now, but when we extrapolated figures from the pudding and sauce sales, and because you know the pudding is made is the predominant ingredient in the pudding is sweet potato. When we extrapolated the amount of sweet potato being used in Barbados, it was beyond anything that we could have contemplated, right? So it is a highly used commodity, very resilient. It does use a lot of water, so this is something that we need to be mindful of. As I mentioned earlier, we are a water scarce island, or water stress island, I prefer to use. So we have to be very careful about this commodity, but again, with irrigation systems, with the engineering, we can successfully grow this commodity. We have on the slide to the bottom, the photo to the bottom right, this is the Aloe barbadensis Miller, and from the name, you can hear Barbados is actually in the name of this particular variety. So we could use that at our significant advantage when marketing this crop. And if you're saying that it's coming from Barbados, no, this aloe, of all of the aloes, of which there are hundreds, is ranked in the top 4 in terms of its potency, its medicinal value, and its utilization, right? Very good plant, and again, a commodity that we could look at exploiting and making significant use in. The plant to bottom center may not be familiar to most of us in Barbados. This is the amaranth plant, what Jamaicans call Callaloo, and it's a food for those of you who are familiar with Jamaica or been to Jamaica would recognize that this is what more than half the population in Jamaica wake up and eat every morning, and sometimes later on in the day too. So very hardy plant. We have some families of it that grow here. The variety, we still have to do a bit of research to determine if the variety we have here is similar. I don't think it's the exact variety, but I do know it is very hardy. This plant grows in concrete, right? Here it grows in Bridgetown. So if it can grow in the culverts in Bridgetown, then certainly on your windowsill, if you have a little plant pot and you're putting a couple of seeds, certainly this is a plant that cannot fail in my estimation, right? So, and again, when we talk about the use of plants and looking to build immunities and so on, then these are foods that we have to consider including in our diets. Right? And of course, we have the coconut, of which we are all familiar. Many uses of the coconut. We know about the water and the jelly, but we can also make fuel, we can make fiber for clothes. There are many uses. One of the good things about the coconut trees is that I know the typical photo of a tropical island is a island with just sand and one coconut tree in the middle, right? And what is interesting about that particular photo, and it doesn't tell the full tale, but coconuts are, or the trees are one of the few trees that we utilize widely that can actually be irrigated using salt water, using seawater. So this speaks volumes for, again, when we talk about climate change and so on, and saltwater intrusion, and so on and so forth, which has already occurred. These are not things that have not been a part of our history as far as agriculture is concerned. So these are some of the advantages we have from growing some of these types of crops. And I say that as opposed to some of the other types of commodities that we fight up with, and we spend a lot of money and effort and energy trying to fight pests and try to make sure that we get the right pH for the water and temperatures and so on and so forth, right? So keep it simple. I had a hockey coach, and I sure many of us may know Colonel Dayton Maynard, who his maxim was keep it simple and stupid. And trust me, we won a lot of hockey games that way, right? So what I try to encourage and tell people in agriculture, just try to keep it simple. Observe what it is you're being presented with. Let your eyes be your best guide, and you should be in good state, right? But keeping it simple is something that I would strongly recommend. Now, when we talk about focusing on these commodities, and I will introduce the Blackbelly sheep here again because I want to step a little bit deeper into where it is we can go with it. Now, traditionally, as we know, the sheep is raised for its meat, right? That is what was, and even today, that is the main value that is attributable to the sheep. Now, when we speak about opportunities, we have to look now at all that the sheep brings. So yes, the sheep has at some time we can slaughter and we can sell lamb and so on. But during the life of the sheep is producing manure, right? And the slide I've presented here is actually, I'm going to take you through it, but it's actually highlighting some of the opportunities that we miss by throwing away, by not considering the importance of the manure. Now, remember, I had mentioned earlier that the organic market is growing. It's growing by 10% annually. So we have people coming in to do organic production that will need inputs. So for example, sheep manure, chicken manure, cow dung, horse manure. These are very, very good ingredients to substitute the nitrogen that we may be using synthetically, right? So there is opportunity now. Again, we spoke about home gardening. I'm not sure if you all had paid attention to the reports that were coming out of the seedling nurseries and people selling plants in pots and so on. They were under tremendous strain in the first lockdown. They didn't have enough plants and seedlings to give to people. They were inundated with orders as people wanted to get involved in home gardening. But you can't plant the seedlings in air. You need the soil, you need the manure, you need the grass, the compost, and so on and so forth, that you will be incorporating to get your production going. So these things have tremendous value, and the value is growing. So we have the example here of a farmer that has 20, and it's a kind of a real scenario. It may be a little bit dated. The market rate, the market rate for the lambs remains on average 21 kilograms. I believe they're actually getting more than $11 per kilogram now at the supermarket, right? So the example I present here is a farmer that is preparing to slaughter 20 lambs for the supermarket, to sell to the supermarket. Now, traditionally, and what normally would happen is that they would send the thing to the abattoir. The abattoir would cut off, do whatever they have to do, slaughter, clean, cut up in the different parts, and either you would have them send it direct to the supermarket, or you come and collect and then go to the supermarket. But the scenario I point I speak to is pointing to $4,650 per cycle, per 20 rams that go through this this cycle, right? Now, what we're saying is that for every 2 days, right? So we have the lambs, and we're assuming that the lambs are being intensively raised. So we have them in pens. Yes, they may be out in the pasture at certain times, but we bring them in at night and so on, which is traditionally how the animals are raised in Barbados. So every day, what happens? If either you or the person that is helping, you may be paying somebody to help you raise the animals, and so they have to clean out the stall, because of course for animal hygiene and so on. This is a routine maintenance of the pens, right? Now you put so what the evidence is suggesting. So for every 2 days, you have 20 animals. Every 2 days you can fill a feed bag with waste every 2 days. So over 9 months, what we're suggesting is $675 in increased revenue. And I'm not talking about the what I should mention. The slide on the top is a little misleading. Those are not the feedbacks that I'm describing. This is a more refined product. And what we could do is take that initial waste that we have in the feedback and refine it a little bit more and produce these bags, maybe a 10-pound bag or a 5-pound bag. And of course, they sell for this is no ground sheep manure. This is pristine stuff that may sell for $8, $10 a bag, right? So, and of course, we're not talking feed bag quantities anyhow. These are much smaller quantities, well vacuum sealed, packaged, labeled, and ready for market. And yes, they are selling in Barbados. Massey distribution sells them. I know the same seed burst nurseries would sell to supplement their plant sales and so on and so forth. So essentially what we can see is that, and the text in red actually speaks to what I wanted to get to, that just by not adding much more to what it is you're doing with the everyday maintenance of your pens and so on, you are foregoing a potential 15% increase in revenue. And this is a market right now because, again, there is no one that I know that is selling feed bags of manure that has any difficulty getting rid of them. So there are opportunities certainly out there for that. I haven't even begun to speak about, okay, so this is over 9 months. Imagine now if you kept your animals, so you have some that you might keep on for breeding and so on, and you have a sheep there for, let's say, 2, 3, 4 years, right? Then of course this, I mean, one of the things that it would not stop doing is shitting, right? I think we understand that. So we will be collecting feed bags of manure every 2 days for the life cycle of the animal, or for the life of the animal. Excuse me. We spoke about the beekeeping aspect and the fact that bees are very, very resilient, and why don't we take advantage of the bees and what they can do for us. And one of the things, as I tell people, bees do all the work. Bees actually are I say they provide the labor and the middle management. And in fact, if you don't watch yourself and don't provide the right environment for them, like a lot of the unions that run a lot of talk, bees will get up and leave. They will strike and leave and don't come back. That's how bees operate. So we have to be very careful how it is we operate with bees, but understand, of course, that it has to be one, as I tell my fellow beekeepers, and so as Bertram indicated, I was the former president of the Beekeeping Association. If we want to differentiate what we do in Barbados from where we see honey production going in the rest of the world, let's put bees at the center. Put the care for the bees at the center and let the industry evolve from there. And then you will see how you could create a market, a distinct or differentiated market based on what it is we're doing in Barbados. Now, this slide, as I said, we speak about now trying to create new products for new markets. All right. And we spoke about the commodities that we focus on, and the 2 dozen or up to 30 commodities that in the main predominate our diets, right? Less than 30. What we're trying to do with honey is to change the way in which honey is looked at. And that is why you see the first statement I have. Are we promoting the sweetener or are we promoting the healer? Now, you would appreciate that in traditional markets and as far as commodity exchanges go, things that have a medicinal value tend to attract a higher price than other commodities that may just be seen for the nutritional purposes, or less yet, even if they're seen as just an alternative sweetener. So when we first started talking about honey and honey was first promoted, it was just that. It was being the next best sweetener or the best alternative to sugar or the healthy alternative to sugar and so on. What we have got to do is to try to, yes, it is a healthy alternative to sugar, and we're not going to discredit the sugar properties and the fact that we consuming a lower glycemic food and so on and so forth. What we want to get to is where honey could make a greater impact on improving our health. So, for example, when people talk about honey and burns, people talk about honey for coughs and for colds and these types of things. Are we really maximizing the value of our honey if we try to put it and sell it as a substitute for what we see being sold imported and what we see being sold as imported from our Massey shelves and on Cost-U-Less and Price Smart shelves and so on? Now, to my mind, and what our argument has been is no, we are producing a totally different product. Yes, we recognize that we have to sensitize and we have to get messaging out there and so on and so forth, which we have started to do. In fact, I think for the last couple of years, we have been changing the narrative around what it is we are producing in Barbados, and it has been bearing fruit. I can say that as of 2019, the price of honey, of local honey, relative, I saw size for size, relative to the amount you will get for imported honey, is almost twice the amount. And it is not that we suggest that we want to to reach put a price where people cannot reach, but what we are trying to do is to demonstrate the tremendous value that honey has in Barbados. And where is this coming from? Okay, the Caribbean, as you know, has a tremendous heritage or a tremendous legacy for being known as a tropical destination. Now, when people speak about honey, this is a direct link that they have. So the destination itself adds value to the product it is that we're looking to sell. Now, when we speak about the products, right, again, we could touch on the value-added products with the scrubs and the candles and so on that you see being demonstrated here. But we have, what to my mind, an opportunity to tell our story based on, and speaking about within apiculture, based on our unique floral mix, based on our seasons, based on the types of bees we have. Many of you may not know or may not appreciate, but within apiculture, there is within beekeeping, there is a devastating mite, a parasite, a bee parasite called the Varroa Mite, which together with a lot of other factors would have caused significant colony collapse in this hive colony collapses in temperate countries, Europe, USA, and so on. One of the things we have found is that our bees seem to be resistant to the Varroa Mite. Is it, what is it? What is the characteristic? These are things that we need to examine. we need to, I guess, get resources to put behind so that we can tell a complete story about our bees, and if there are any advantages therein that we can use to promote our honey as a premium product, then I believe we should do so. Similar to what New Zealand would have done with Manuka honey. Manuka honey is the most expensive honey in the world right now. Way more expensive than even what we sell Barbadian honey at, but it is to a large part attributable to the support that the New Zealand government would have put behind the industry to ensure you have like Manuka indicators, so people can actually do some testing and guarantee that their honey has a particular Manuka factor that would cause it to be characterized as such, and so on, and hence attracting the prices that they do. So we have tremendous opportunities. As I said, right now the world is in a state over honey. We have actors, we have major entertainers coming in and supporting beekeeping initiatives as a result of the same colony collapse that I was just spoken about, but also recognizing that the bees, like all other insects, are under significant threat, and people are trying to see what they can do to assist and to reverse this situation. All right, so I do think that this is one area in which we have a lot of potential. Another big area, of course, I know all of us are following this. We know that with the onset of the medicinal cannabis industry in Barbados, there are huge opportunities for persons to get involved in agriculture, and not just the agronomy and the growing of cannabis, but also the different spin-off type of activities and systems and products that will derive, and because of course you recognize that while traditionally, when I say traditionally, historically, the consumption of cannabis has been more through the smoking of it. We are finding many more ways in which it is being consumed. So we have to find all of those different paraphernalia, different apparatus, and so on, to ensure that the persons consuming it are consuming it in a form that is suitable for them and based on the recommendations that they give. One of the areas that, as we say, we're speaking specific to Barbados and within the Caribbean context, we have to look at how, and I mean, it may be a bit of a sore spot, but it doesn't, I don't think we should hide from it or run from it, but address the issue of our experiences with cannabis, whether we speak about it from our link with the whole emerging from a colonial state to independent state, and the traditional uses of it. People would use it like rastas and so on, to tell the story of our legacy of cannabis use, and to have that highlighted in whatever packaging we're doing. It could be tourism related, it could be educational related, so that we do not lose, and we actually have a foot in what we can now present as a Barbados cannabis position, for want of a better phrase. Because one of the things, if you're following the discourse, one of the things that we don't want to fall prey to is having the foreign direct investment come in, and at some point in time, they only produce products that will be for export markets, or for markets that are beyond what we recognize as traditional cannabis markets in Barbados and the Caribbean. So those are some of the thoughts on that. Of course, the slide to the right, I mean, when you're talking about, and this is one of the things that we have to be very cognizant of when we speak about growing medicinal cannabis within the context of having nothing like that ever happened in Barbados. Then you're talking about bringing in the lights, you're talking about bringing in the inputs, the chemical inputs, whether it be organic or not, to sustain the plants and so on and so forth. So these are things and opportunities for entrepreneurs. You may not necessarily get into the production of the plant itself or seek a license under the regulations that they present, but you may have, again, security services. This is one of the things that the BMCLA keeps highlighting will be one of the spin-off industries that will come about as a result of a medicinal cannabis industry, because every entity that is cleared to produce must produce an audited security plan. So the opportunities are endless when we speak about where this industry can go. Other emerging opportunities, we speak about digital agriculture, which is, as the term suggests, the transformation of agriculture into the digital age, right? So we're not suggesting that we are going to be, although we may be getting to parts where we are consuming foods in different ways, in novel ways as well. But for the time being, we are going to be speaking about using this digital technologies to improve our precision planning, production, and marketing, essentially, right? So what the slide has, I have the top 5 programming languages, because this is a lot of where the thinking has gone now. A lot of people, so we have agronomists, we have hydrologists, we have entomologists, and so on, and now we have computer programmers that are focusing on bringing solutions to the agricultural industry through software, development of software, and so on. The photo at the bottom right is a remote sensing drone, which is picking up data on the soil humidity, temperature, maybe if there's any incidence of any pests that may be identified. So we're trying to use technologies to make decision making a lot easier for us, right? We have the use of virtual reality and augmented reality headsets to help us with our visual planning, our spatial planning of spaces and so on, to know where goes, what will go where, and if you wanted to do a simulation as to how a fruit orchard may evolve over 10, 15 years with the canopy growth and so on. You can all do these simulations now to get a better appreciation as to how far plants need to be spaced and where your irrigation system needs to be sited relative to the slope of your land. All of these things can now be pre-designed in a VR module and planned out, sorted out, tweaked before you actually go and do the implementation. And the final photo, you have a weather station. In fact, one of the things when we speak about agriculture being climate resilient or climate smart, we have to know factor, just like how we listen to our agronomists when they taught us about growing conditions for plants, and your entomologists when they talk to us about pest infestations and so on. We need to be listening to the meteorologists when they talk about El Nino and what does that mean, or La Nina and what does that mean, and so on and so forth, right? So that we could now put things in place and have our own simulations in place to know exactly what it is we are, what we anticipate will come. Coming on to the end, I thought it would be remiss of me if I didn't speak about emerging opportunities within the context of the COVID environment that we find ourselves in. And again, these are just some ideas. I'm sure you have a lot more, but certain things that have come to mind over the last 2 years for us, in fact, bringing attention to us in the field, would be looking at foods that boost our immune system. So I know, for example, there's been a lot of talk about turmeric and ginger and the use of these as in recipes to help suppress the effects of COVID and all other viral illnesses as well, because one of the things that COVID has actually brought out really is the whole issue of, how we protect ourselves from viruses like the flu and so on and so forth. So immune crops and commodities that focus on these nutraceutical, these have these phytochemical properties that suppress viruses and antioxidant properties, antibacterial properties, and so on, are commodities that are in very high demand. In fact, the price of ginger, I think, has doubled on the world market, say, since COVID, right? Coming across, we have it's a local. I try to get a local photo of a local brand. In fact, for the most part, what you would see in these slides would have been local photographs, bar a few. This is a hand sanitizer, an organic hand sanitizer product that was developed by a colleague of mine, Damon Corey. I'm not sure many of us know him as the Snake Man, but he and his family actually have developed a product, again, alcohol-based product, 100% organic product that is a hand sanitizer. So these are some of the opportunities, and we know hand sanitizers ain't going nowhere in a hurry. So we also have examples of Montgay, I believe it was, that would have presented at the height of the pandemic last year, at the onset of it, I should say, presented some alcohol so that presented alcohol to Sedema so that they could use it as an input to make, as an emergency for hand sanitizer solution and so on and so forth. So yeah, this is something that, again, based off of agricultural commodity, you could put in the same aloe. You will be using plant-based materials to make it. So it is to do your research and to find out what it is, or what we have out there, and ways in which you can make this work. Home groceries and deliveries at your doorstep. This is a service, kind of extension from the curbside pickup, which you see a lot of the supermarkets and so on employing doing this thing. It's all in an event to keep people from mingling and suppressing the spread of the virus. We know that Shafek, for example, has, I ain't sure how many of them yellow cars we have on the road now, but we know it's a significant fleet. And of course, that would have come about of them doing their research and recognizing that people, especially in this time, prefer to be at home. And if you can do more home deliveries, then it's better for them, right? And of course, we can't rule out the cashless transfers and the importance and perhaps the vision of companies such as M-Money, who would have, prior to this pandemic, would have looked at setting up systems to allow for cashless transfers. And again, we know that money is like germs. So we try to avoid the use of money, especially when we are paranoid about germs being passed and spread around and so on and so forth. So these are just some of the additional opportunities that could come about. Again, not all of them are and money certainly is not agricultural related, but it does assist us in, or could assist in the delivery of agricultural commodities and so on across the island. And with that, I've come to the end. So I want to thank you. This is just a slide of me and a young brigade that on a mission to plant and trees all about Barbados. Because of COVID, unfortunately, we haven't gotten through with it as we would have liked. But I do want to encourage those of you on the call, and you could even encourage those that are not here, that in range of your voice, to encourage them to get on board in the National Tree Planting Initiative. We know that it has been, as I said, it has been delayed to a large degree because of COVID and so on. But I do think that with strong allies with NCC and Soil Conservation Commission, who are actually providing trees and giving them to people who, for free, who are interested in becoming involved, it is a good way to get a lot of community work going and get some of the soil amelioration, some of this soil stabilization, get some of the crop covering and the environmental protection that we require to have an impact and to perhaps ensure that the future, the next 50 years, let's say, of agriculture in Barbados is quite transformed from the last 50 years. That's all I would say. Thank you. Just in closing, these are my coordinates for anybody that would like to reach me beyond the presentation. I can leave this up for a little bit so you can take off the information, but that chair is the end of the presentation. So I now turn it back over to you. I'm not sure if we have a segment for question and answers, but I am available.
Thank you, Damien, for the presentation. And I think, yeah, we can do, we can take a few questions because I guess, persons out there really be interested, be piqued. And I'm sure that there are people out there with questions. You just follow etiquette. If you're not asking the question or if you're not involved, just turn off the mic. So you can start sending your questions to Damien. Start asking the questions. Damien, so your presentation has been so good that people understood everything. I'm gonna
Bertram.
Yeah, question. Sorry. Question, Damien. If I'm using a space 20 by 40, what would be a good crop that we can maximize 20 by 40 in a greenhouse? What would be a good crop to use?
By 40 space you have, okay. But
20 by 40. So I use a space of 20 by 40. I use another set for all the stuff. I would let it do a little greenhouse stuff. So I just would let for what would be a crop like using a 20 feet by 40 feet square greenhouse. What that?
Yeah, no problem.
That is low maintenance to low maintenance.
That's fine. That's fine. Now, as you can imagine, we get these types of questions quite often, right? And what we have actually done is develop a template of questions that we ask persons to ask themselves first, so that we get a better idea. So, for example, you're lucky you want to is crops that you like. We encourage people to grow food that they like first of all, because you're talking about a small space, so you're gonna grow food that you and your family might either spend a lot of money at the supermarket on, or you can't get it, but you like it. So this is a priority for you. The other thing we tend to ask people are, I mean, for Barbados, it's easy to assume that we're talking about low-lying tropics, right? You're not in like Chimborazo or any highland areas or anything like that. You're in town?
No, I'm in country. Every country.
You might have some elevation that could provide some cooler climates than what most of us experience, right? So so from
I mean, it's St. Joseph area, but the land is pretty. The 20 by 40 is flat. But I was just trying to find a low maintenance crop that wouldn't be too hard to work with it. I could still.
Okay.
I could still get it off, but I need to get it off.
Some of the lowest maintenance crops would be like herbs, thyme, marjoram, parsley, those types of crops, and they actually fetch a pretty decent penny as well, right? And when you talk about low maintenance, there are crops that, as you know, you can cut and then they will spring back. So there's not a lot of replanting that is required, especially not in the initial stages, right? You can get quite a few harvests before you have to replant. Lettuce, and the other thing I also would we also ask is the duration, the type of duration. If you are looking for something with quick turnover, because lettuce is a very short-term crop, you can turn a crop of lettuce in 4 to 5 weeks. And again, if you're using it for your own salad plates and so on, You don't necessarily need to harvest an entire head of lettuce. Lettuce is something that you can peel the outer leaves and leave it, and so the plant actually stays and regenerates itself for some time before it goes into what we call the diurnal stage, the bolting, where it goes back to flower. Right. Other crops. Just you know, I'm not sure who I'm speaking to, but Anton, we actually had a project in St. Patrick's Churchyard, very similar setup to what you described. It was I think it was a 20 by 20 greenhouse. It was one of these half moon greenhouses that we had the plastic come right away down, but the entire tunnel was free. We didn't have any covering on the back or the front, and we actually were able to grow, I think it was 11 different commodities and about, again, under very, very intensive circumstances. I think we got over 100 plants in that 20 by 20 setup. So we had string beans, we had cauliflower, we had broccoli, we had lettuce, we had tomato, we had, I think we had sweet pepper. Yeah, I can't remember all of them right now, but it is possible that you can set up something where you can grow all of these types of crops in very small spaces.
Okay.
Pretty
much, is there someone who helps you with regards to the infrastructure locally?
There are a few persons that assist. There are what I recommend. They also have some pretty simple DIY structures that you can do out of PVC. If you use the 3/8 PVC, you get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lengths of PVC. 2 of them would go along the ground, and then you bend 3 of them to form 3 ribs growing to create the tunnel. And then with PVC glue or screws, I recommend the screws because they're easy to detach if you have any problems with if for whatever reason you wanted to detach the structure, you can just back off the screws and take it down. But there are a few simple structures that we, for example, would have set up for partners in youth farms and other NGOs and so. So this is something, again, maybe this is something we can speak about afterwards. But there are quite low cost technologies. The greenhouse that I was speaking about, I think, came out of Martinique and cost over $2,400. But you could set up something for half of that or less than half of that.
Yeah.
Same size.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks, man.
No problem.
Yeah, sure. There are other questions. Damien.
Yes, Bertrand.
What would the development of pesticides or own pesticides? What we have here, because I know I've heard people talking about using the neem tree and other plants we have from here to develop.
Yeah, no, this is a very good point. In fact, when I speak about, and yeah, perhaps this is another emerging area where, as people want to do more permaculture, more backyard gardening, more organic farming, and why include backyard gardening in this area, in this under this part, is because remember when we are growing in our backyards, the idea is that we want to have this for a person, not just like stand up in the country that might not have any neighbors, but those people that have neighbors, and the idea, and neighbors within close proximity too. And the idea here is that we don't want to be using harmful sprays, harmful fertilizers or insecticides or weedicides, and you like to that could impact our neighbors in an adverse way, right? So we encourage, particularly if we're going to be doing gardening in urban areas, to use organic practices as far as possible so as to limit the impact on your neighbors, right? There was also a study that spoke about the differences in urban insects and the fact that you may not want to adversely affect that ecology as well, right? So yeah, that's something. But yes, certainly neem. We have neem used in conjunction with garlic and hot pepper. It's a very, very good insect barrier, particularly for biting insects. We have and again, and there are many other inputs. So we have, for example, we can use the coconut. We can coconut husk, shell at extreme temperatures and create biochar. We can create activated charcoal. There are a lot of organic inputs that can be created based on the feedstocks that we have. Again, speaking about sargassum, speaking about coconut husk, speaking about again the pepper, the products of garlic and so on that we have, and so on and so forth, right? So yes, it is something that we definitely can look into, and will become more and more important as people get involved in these types of gardening practices that I speak about.
Dan, you need to mute.
Renewable energy, especially in development, and used in areas such as using the renewable energy.
Bertram, I'm not hearing you clearly. Are you talking to me?
Yeah, but
I'm not hearing you clearly.
okay, listen, what's the question? Hello, you can hear me now?
Yes, I'm hearing you a lot better.
Yeah. What we're looking at, we use renewable systems.
You're going back, like muted again.
I'm not hearing your property, and they got some people that need to mute the mic. So, Chin, mute your mic.
The host can mute the participants.
Hey, Bertram.
Yeah, I'm still there.
Yeah, I think let me try again. Let me see if I can hear you better now.
Yeah, you can hear me better now?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, I was asking about renewable and sustainable energy and its use in agriculture and use as emerging technologies and probably, to create some sort of income and employment opportunities in that particular area, like development.
Okay, I take you're speaking about diversifying the income potential on the farm space itself by going the route of installing wind turbines or solar panels and so on. right? These are potential as well. But even within that, in fact, I got a call, not me, but the association got a call about from a person who is interested in partnering or combining a beekeeping enterprise with a solar farm. We have to now do a bit of research. Bees are very, very sensitive to electromagnetic pulses and radiation. So we have to determine to what extent the bees may find coexisting with a solar farm compatible. But yeah, we aren't ruling out anything at this point. We do recognize there is tremendous thrust for persons to get involved in solar farming in particular, and as a result, a lot of agricultural land is now being considered for that purpose. I know in Trent, St. Lucie, the Barbados Light and Power actually partnered with a sheep farmer to come and keep the grass down within and among their solar panels in their Trent, St. Lucie plant. But it is something that, again, needs careful attention. For example, while I mean, and the idea seems like a good one on the outset, we have to recognize that these solar panels themselves provide quite a bit of shade, which are it is a detriment to the growth of the pasture. So while the sheep and so on will be there keeping down grass, they'll be keeping down very little grass, and not much nutrition will be in that particular grass. So it's a balance that we need to find. What we are seeing more and more, and perhaps where the partnership is working, is where we see a lot more of the renewable energy technologies being used to power agricultural plants. So for example, dairy farms are now using solar panels and solar energy to cool the milk, to assist with a lot of the high energy costs and consumption that will be attributable to some of these farms. Chipmunk Foods, I know they have also started to transfer, to switch to renewable energy to power their plants and so on. And it is something that is happening more and more, even for the sake of pumping of water and so on. I know a lot of farms are actually switching. Redland farms, for example, traditionally they use wind turbine, one of them old, one of those old windmills, old-time windmills that you will see in a bygone era. They still have, up to a few years ago, they were still using to pump water from one of their water storage sites to irrigate their farm. So it is something that is taking off, and I just say, as we look more and more towards the future, you will see perhaps, and as Barbados embarks on its mission to become carbon neutral by 2030, I believe we are going to see a lot more of these initiatives happening on farm.
Okay, David.
Does that answer your question?
We can go a lot further, but we'll stop there for now. Any other questions? We'll take a look. 1, 2 more questions before we go, if there are any more questions.
Harold has his hand up.
I didn't know some of the persons.
I see Harold has a hand up.
Oh,
Harold Jones.
Yes, Damien, I have a question on the what you call it, the kind of, you talk about different but in US, the premium for the crops, and I got a mental block, but how do you plant things differently to get what the seller says, you know what I mean? Like if you're gonna plant potatoes and you're gonna have potatoes, the different, you're gonna sell the potatoes or any product. Well, you talk about they sell it at a premium. I lost the word now. I'm very skeptical about
Organic, you're talking about
organic.
Varroa?
Yeah, organic. Yeah. Do you plant differently to get organic food, or this is a scam?
No, thanks very much for the question. And it is a fair one because for a lot of persons, for example, that have not, and let me, I'm going to choose my words carefully. There are certain segments of the international community, mainly the poorer countries of the world, who have not necessarily fully bought into the green agricultural revolution, which was a term that was bandied about a few decades back, right? Which spoke about the industrialization of food and the use of synthetic fertilizers to boost agricultural production. And the fact that we have come full circle, recognizing that I'm not sure if everyone has admitted that it may be a mistake in our history, but it's certainly going to be reflected as such at some point where we recognize that the Green Revolution was not necessarily best for all. It wasn't necessarily best for all. And when we talk about best for all in terms of humankind, because of the tremendous dislocation of jobs and so on that would have attributed to that. Now we're also seeing the tremendous decline in our ecosystem and our ecology, our environment and climate change and all of these other things that have come about as a result of it. So to call it a hoax perhaps is not far-fetched, because to my mind, I do think it is another marketing tool, another tool to kind of differentiate markets and to exploit and to take advantage of persons who may now be more inclined to think about the environment and are very passionate about the environment. So it is really to appease these notions and so on. But the point is, though, that we still have some persons in Barbados, maybe not in Barbados, because we have developed pretty quickly, but in certain parts of the world that still have not had access to these synthetic fertilizers and chemicals and pesticides and so on that have been bandied and touted as the as a godsend, for want of a better phrase, you know. So there are people that have been producing traditionally that if you want to now call them organic, I don't think it is fair to them to now have to call what they've been doing nonstop now as organic, because they haven't really changed the mode of production. But I do take your point. I do take the point of others that look on with some sense of skepticism as we speak to redressing or reversing a system of farming or reclassifying a system of farming that has really been in existence forever and non-stop in certain parts of the world, right? The question as to whether it is a different mode of production, the answer is yes. And similarly to how what we're going to see with again with the cannabis industry, where it's going to be highly scrutinized with a lot of inspections and people making sure that this box is checked and that box is checked. The international organic market or movement does have checks and balances and so on in place, and they do have organic assessors and organic certifiers that are around that go and inspect and make sure that you are doing things by the book. And if, for example, and remember, they always, and it's like everything else, they say it's very difficult to build a good reputation, but easy to break it, right? Or to have it destroyed. If you have persons that are doubtful about your practices and so on, they can call customers and so on. Somebody may go into Massey, let's say you have, or let's use the example that is there, the Corsuless example, where there is an organic market shelf, or organic produce shelf. A customer can easily come and say, well, okay, I picked up these carrots that this boy Damien say he producing organically in St. George, but when I taste it, it don't taste right, and I suspect it may have this or that, and they call whoever, right? Then they red flag you, and perhaps inspectors will come out to your farm to inspect and make sure that you say you're doing what you claim to be doing, right? So it is regulated. And it is not something that, and this is internationally, where you are getting the premium prices, as I said, in the North American markets, in the European markets, in Japanese markets in particular. But in Barbados, what we have are a group of committed farmers who have, again, more or less bought into organic farming from the ethics of it, not necessarily from a commercial or trying from a profit making objective. And it is pretty much based on trust. We do encourage, as I said, the association does encourage members that want to join to participate in the training courses so that they understand what is expected of them as far as producing organically, and they themselves do offer some hand-holding and some site visits. So it's an open network where people go and visit other farmers, not necessarily to say, okay, you're doing this or you're doing that, but more or less from a helpful, from a point of view of being able to help people along the journey and ensuring that they get the most out of what it is they want to do.
Thanks, Dave. I think we're going to have to wrap up here because we are a bit over time. So, Bertram, I don't know if you want to just close off.
Okay. Before you get on, Damien, let me remind all that tomorrow night there's the discussion on mental health, and then on Thursday night we'll be looking at Combermere's legacy as far as cricket. Its contribution to cricket internationally, locally, West Indies. We will be looking at that, and there will also be, I think, on Thursday night they'll be hearing some other news. So I would like you all to come on, invite others on. So you can get. We would like to have at least 200 or 300 people on Thursday night, because that discussion is going to be very interesting. We have people like Suez, we have people like Ricky Alcock, Henderson Springer. We have a good panel. It's going to be chaired by Andy Ford, Dr. Andy Ford, who's a guest on, he's the guest on Mason and Guest. And then on Friday, we'll be having the reunion virtual style. Then the way that only we can do it. All right. So we're looking forward to you at all the other events for the rest of the week. Damien, my brother, let me thank you for coming on and sharing your knowledge, your expertise with us. I think you've given us a lot of food for thought. You've given some areas which we can look at, that we can create some wealth for ourselves and create some income and stuff. For those who came on, we thank you, and we look forward to seeing you again tomorrow night, Thursday night, and Friday night. All right? Up and on, fellas.
Yeah, if I may, Bertram, before I go, I just want to thank you all once again for inviting me, Mark. Thanks very much and congratulations as president or chair. I'm not sure what was your exact title within the World Scholars Association. I want to big up the class of 93 that are on tonight. I know we would have spent some time speaking about tonight, and so thanks very much to all for the support, and again, mainly thanks for including agriculture on the panel, because I do think it is a topic that we need to paid great attention to, and again, it is our lifeblood. So with that, I thank you, and I wish you all the best for the rest of the week and the other presentations that are to come.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks.
Yeah, easy, big up.
Kofi, over to you.
So we all sit here?
Seems that way.
No, they left
Hey, anyways, I just want to say big up to Damien, big up Martins, big up everybody for Jamaica. You know, it was great. Hopefully sometime we'll be back at some point. Kwame Emmanuel. 93. 5C. All right then, Philip, big up. Love to everybody. Be safe.
Be fully loaded on this thing.
Kwame. Hey, we got send out all the non-Combermere. Send them out.
Damien, fantastic presentation. I'll reach out to you.
No problem. That's it.
All right, later. One love, family. All right, it's your reason.
Bye, Kwame. Take care, bro.
So y'all having a good thing when I just done it left. Think that every sense. Go home.
All right, take care.
Man, ready for drinks.
Ready for drinks? I guess we will go and pour it on drink. Pour your own drink and come back. Just just pass the message on to the others. You know, miss.
Great job, Bertrand. Have a good night.
Thanks,